Stop lying to yourself. You're not stuck because the world is unfair. You're not behind because you didn't get the right opportunities. And you're definitely not living small because of your parents, your boss, or your environment. The real reason you're stuck is this: your thinking is too damn small. Think about it. Every time you dream, you cut it in half to make it realistic. Every time you feel ambition rise, you shut it down with, "But what if I fail?" Every time you get a spark of a crazy idea, you smother it with doubt before it even has a chance to breathe. You've been playing defense your entire life, hiding behind the safety of small goals, small risks, small visions. And that's why your life feels small. And here's the ugly truth nobody wants to admit. The size of your life will never outgrow the size of your thinking. You want freedom, but you think paycheck to paycheck. You want impact, but you're afraid to post one bold idea. You want wealth, but you plan for survival instead of abundance. Do you see the pattern? The prison is in your head, and you built it. Jim Rohn used to say, "Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better." But let me take it one step further. Don't wish for a bigger life if you're still thinking with a small mind, because it doesn't work that way. You don't get the mansion with an apartment mindset. You don't build empires with minimum wage dreams. So here's my challenge to you: stop pretending. Stop calling fear realism. Stop calling mediocrity being practical. If you feel that burning anger in your chest right now, that frustration with your own limitations, go. That's the signal. That's the proof you were meant for more. The only question left is this: how much longer are you going to keep playing small? The first step to truly thinking big is understanding the raw, unfiltered power of imagination. And I don't mean the shallow, childish kind of imagination where you drift off in the middle of the day, picturing yourself on a beach. I'm talking about the kind of imagination that builds empires, that changes the trajectory of families for generations, that creates futures so massive people laugh when they hear them. Because here's the truth: everything around you started in somebody's mind. The chair you're sitting on, the device you're watching this video on, the company that built that device, none of it existed until someone had the audacity to imagine it. And yet most people go through their entire lives never once taking their own imagination seriously. Think about that for a second. When was the last time you closed your eyes and deliberately designed the life you wanted, not the one you were told to settle for? If you're like most, the answer is probably never. Because we've been conditioned to use imagination the wrong way. We don't imagine success, we rehearse failure. We picture the worst-case scenario so vividly that it paralyzes us. We imagine rejection before we even speak up. We imagine going broke before we ever try the business. We imagine losing before we ever step onto the field. And then we wonder why life keeps confirming our fears. Jim Rohn understood this deeply. He once said, "Every good thing we enjoy started with an idea." And he lived that truth. He didn't grow up rich. He didn't grow up with connections. He didn't have a golden ticket, but what he did have was a mind willing to dream beyond his circumstances. And that, more than anything else, was the seed of his future. Let me tell you a story that makes this real. Picture a young man, working dead-end jobs, broke, stuck, with no sense of direction. That young man was Jim Rohn himself. At one point, he was 25 years old, broke, behind on his bills, embarrassed at the state of his life. And then something happened. He was invited to a seminar by a man named Earl Schoaf, a successful entrepreneur who would later become his mentor. In that seminar, for the first time, Jim heard the idea that your life is not shaped by your circumstances, it's shaped by your philosophy, the way you think. That night, Jim went home with fire in his chest. For the first time, he sat down and imagined a life far bigger than the one he was living. And slowly, piece by piece, he rebuilt his entire future around that vision. That's the power of imagination. It doesn't just comfort you. It directs you. It gives you a blueprint before you even have the bricks. So here's your practical takeaway. Create a vision rehearsal. Every day, for 10 minutes, shut the world off. Put your phone down, silence the noise, and close your eyes. Picture the life you actually want. Not the one that feels safe. Not the one that barely pays bills. The life you want if failure wasn't an option. See the house, the car, the trips, the relationships, the freedom. But don't just see it like a movie, step inside it. Feel the leather seat of the car. Hear the applause in the room you're speaking in. Taste the dinner at the restaurant you're celebrating in. The more detailed, the more powerful, because your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between rehearsal and reality. And once you see it clearly enough, your actions begin to align with that picture. Now, Some of you might roll your eyes. You might say, "That sounds like daydreaming." But let me ask you this. Do Olympic athletes daydream when they sit quietly before a race, closing their eyes and running the perfect lap in their head? Do world-class speakers daydream when they visualize themselves walking on stage, delivering every line with power, feeling the energy of the crowd before they ever open their mouth? That's not daydreaming. That's training. That's rehearsal. And you can train your imagination the same way. But here's the catch. If your vision doesn't scare you, it's not big enough. If it feels comfortable, you're still thinking small. Jim Rohn used to say, "Set a goal to become a millionaire, not for the money, but for what it will make of you to achieve it." That's the point. It's not about the number. It's about who you have to become to hit it. Your vision has to demand a bigger version of you. Otherwise, you'll stay stuck in the loop you're already in. And let's be honest, small goals are boring. I just want to pay my bills. That's not a goal. That's a survival strategy. I just want to make enough to get by. That's not a dream. That's a trap. And it's why so many people stay in the same place year after year. They think small, and life gives them small. Let me give you another story. A young entrepreneur once told me, "My dream is to earn just enough money so I don't have to stress about rent." And I told him, "That's not a dream. That's poverty with nicer packaging." I pushed him to think bigger. Instead of rent, imagine financial freedom. Instead of surviving, imagine thriving. At first, he resisted. He thought it was unrealistic. But slowly, his vision stretched. He started picturing a business that wasn't just covering rent, but giving him freedom. And within a few years, his reality caught up with his vision. He wasn't just surviving. He was free. Why? Because he dared to imagine something bigger. So here's my challenge for you. Tonight, when you're alone, before you go to bed, rehearse your future. Close your eyes and see the bigger picture. Don't censor yourself. Don't shrink it to fit what feels safe. Taint it massive. Because the moment you expand your imagination, your actions start to expand too. And maybe you're thinking, "But what if I fail?" Let me flip that. What if you succeed? What if you actually pulled it off? What if the version of you you've been suppressing all these years, the ambitious, bold, fearless version, finally got a chance to lead? How different would your life look 12 months from now if you thought big starting today? The truth is, you can't change your entire destination overnight, but you can change your direction overnight. And imagination is that change of direction. It's the spark that sets fire to everything else. So ask yourself, what's the picture you're painting right now? Is it tiny, safe, and suffocating? Or is it bold, outrageous, and magnetic? Because one thing is certain, your future will grow no bigger than the picture you allow yourself to imagine. If this is hitting you, if you feel that stirring inside, don't ignore it. That's the beginning of something. Hit the like button right now so I know you're still here, you're locked in, and you're serious about thinking bigger. Because in the next section, we're going to talk about something just as powerful: the people you surround yourself with. Because your associations can either expand your vision or strangle it. And trust me, this is where the game changes. If imagination is the seed of thinking big, then the people you surround yourself with are the soil. You can plant the most incredible idea in your mind, but if you place it in toxic soil, it will rot before it ever grows. And this is where so many people go wrong. They wonder why their dreams never take off, but if you look closely at their circle, it's obvious. They're surrounded by small thinkers, people who don't just live inside the box, but defend the box like it's sacred. They mock ambition. They laugh at vision. They tell you to be realistic. And slowly, without even realizing it, you start shrinking your imagination to fit their comfort zone. Jim Rohn put it best: you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Think about that. Who are your 5? If you averaged out their mindset, their income, their habits, their health, their ambition, what does that number look like? Is it pulling you up, or is it dragging you down? Because here's the truth. Your environment is not neutral. It's either multiplying your vision or murdering it. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, I worked with a man who had enormous potential. He had ideas, ambition, a vision for a business that could have changed his entire family's future. But every time he spoke about it to his friends, they laughed. They told him it was too risky, that he should just stick with his job, that people like them don't build businesses. And little by little, he started believing them, not because they were right, but because their voices became louder than his own. Eventually, he gave up. That business never got built. Not because he lacked the ability, but because his associations poisoned his faith. Now contrast that with another story. A young woman I met once had the same doubts. She wanted to start something, but her family thought it was foolish. Instead of arguing, she quietly started surrounding herself with people who were already playing at a higher level. She joined mastermind groups. She attended seminars. She cut back on time with the doubters and invested in time with dreamers. Within 2 years, her life looked unrecognizable. Her business exploded, not because she magically got smarter, but because her environment pulled her upward. So here's the principle. Small thinkers shrink big thinkers, but big thinkers stretch small thinkers. And you have to decide which environment you want to live in. Here's a practical step. Take out a sheet of paper tonight and write down the names of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Don't filter it, just write them down. Then ask yourself, do these people challenge me? Do they inspire me? Do they make me think bigger, act bolder, push harder? Or do they drain me, mop me, and keep me comfortable? If the answer is the latter, you've found your problem, because your circle is your ceiling. And don't misunderstand me, I'm not saying you should cut everyone out of your life. I'm saying you need to be intentional about the voices you give weight to. You can still love people without letting them define your vision. You can still be kind without letting small thinkers become your advisors. The key is influence. Who has influence over your mind? Who do you allow to speak into your future? Because whoever shapes your mind shapes your destiny. And let's be honest, sometimes the hardest people to outgrow are the closest ones. Your family might love you, but if they don't think big, they'll unconsciously hold you back. Your friends might care about you, but if their biggest dream is Friday night drinks, they're not going to fuel your $1 million vision. And that's okay. You don't have to cut them off completely, but you do have to make a decision. Will you spend the majority of your time with people who make you shrink or people who make you stretch? Jim Rohn said, find a few people who are successful and spend as much time with them as you can. Why? Because success is contagious, so is mediocrity, and whichever one you expose yourself to most often will infect you. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine you're a thermostat. If you hang around a group of people whose internal setting is at 60 degrees and your vision is set at 90, what do you think happens? Over time, you'll cool down. Not because you wanted to, but because the environment around you pulls your setting down to match theirs. But if you surround yourself with people set at 120, you'll rise, you'll stretch, you'll heat up. That's the law of association. So here's another practical exercise. Create what I call an association audit. Ask yourself, who in my life is a multiplier and who is a subtractor? Multipliers are the people who make you believe more is possible. Subtractors are the ones who drain your belief and clip your wings. Once you identify them, make a conscious decision to multiply your time with the multipliers and minimize your time with the subtractors. Even a 20% shift can change everything. And let's add some humor here, because sometimes the truth is funny. You ever notice that the loudest people telling you what you can't do are the ones who aren't doing anything themselves? Isn't it funny how broke people have the strongest opinions about your financial goals? How out of shape people always have the best advice about your health? How unhappy people are the first to critique your dreams? Don't take advice from people who aren't living the life you want. Period. Here's the reality. Your circle will either expand your vision or strangle it. And if you're serious about thinking big, you cannot afford to spend the majority of your time with small-minded people. That doesn't mean you stop loving them. It means you stop letting them set your thermostat. I'll leave you with this story. When Jim Rohn first started his journey, he didn't have wealthy friends. He didn't have mentors in his neighborhood. So he sought them out. He traveled. He paid for seminars. He listened to tapes. He invested in books. He built an association of mentors even before they knew his name. That's how he elevated himself, by choosing his influences carefully. And you can do the same. Today, you don't even need to fly across the country. You can curate your environment through podcasts, YouTube, books, and communities online. The key is intentionality. Every minute you spend is either watering your dream or poisoning it. So make the choice, because here's the bottom line. If you want to think big, you need to live big. And you cannot live big in a circle that thinks small. If this is connecting with you, hit that like button and let me know in the comments who in your life has been a multiplier for you and who you're ready to spend less time with. Because in the next section, we're going to dive into something just as critical: discipline. The bridge between your imagination and your reality is built brick by brick, and that's where discipline comes in. And trust me, You don't want to miss it. If imagination is the seed, and your associations are the soil, then discipline is the water. Without it, nothing grows. You can dream the biggest dreams in the world, surround yourself with billionaires and visionaries, but if you don't have the discipline to show up day after day, to build brick by brick, your vision will stay just that, a fantasy. And that's where most people fail. It's not that they don't dream big. It's not even that they don't know what to do. It's that they can't get themselves to do it consistently. Jim Rohn said it best: discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. Think about that for a moment. A goal without discipline is just a wish. And wishes don't build legacies. Wishes don't create financial freedom. Wishes don't change families, communities, or the world. Discipline does. Discipline is what turns the invisible into the visible. Here's the brutal truth. Small thinkers hate discipline. They love comfort. They love easy. They love instant gratification. They want the prize without the process, the reward without the work, the harvest without the planting. But thinking big demands discipline, because big visions required big work. And the bigger the dream, the more consistent the discipline has to be. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, there was a man who wanted to transform his health. He bought all the books, watched all the videos, and even signed up for a gym membership. But every time the alarm went off at 6 a.m., he hit snooze. Every time he planned a workout, he found an excuse. Months went by, and nothing changed. Then one day, he heard Jim Rohn speak. Jim said, "We must all suffer one of two pains, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. The difference is discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons." That line hit him like a lightning bolt. The next morning, he forced himself out of bed. He went to the gym. And again the next day. And again the next. Years later, his entire body, health, and energy were transformed. Not because of one massive action, but because of thousands of tiny, disciplined choices. That's how discipline works. It's boring. It's repetitive. It's not glamorous, but it's unstoppable. Discipline is compounding. One small act done daily becomes massive over time. The problem is most people underestimate both sides. They underestimate the power of daily discipline, and they underestimate the weight of daily neglect. They think skipping the workout just today doesn't matter. They think eating junk food just today doesn't matter. They think wasting 3 hours scrolling just today doesn't matter. But it adds up. Neglect compounds as much as discipline does. Jim used to say, "Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines, practiced every day." Notice the words, a few simple disciplines. Not complicated. Not overwhelming, just simple things, done daily. Reading 10 pages of a good book, making one extra phone call, saving a small percentage of your income, writing down your goals. These small, consistent acts shape your destiny, but neglect them, and you shape failure instead. Here's the practical step. Identify 3 disciplines that, if done daily, would change everything for you. Maybe it's reading 20 minutes a day to expand your mind. Maybe it's exercising to build your energy. Maybe it's writing down your goals every morning to stay focused. Pick 3, commit to them, and don't negotiate with yourself, because the enemy of discipline is negotiation. The moment you start asking, "Do I feel like it today?" you've already lost. Discipline doesn't care about feelings. Discipline is about principles. And let's be clear, discipline is not punishment. A lot of people hear the word discipline and think of military drills, pain, suffering. But discipline is not suffering, it's freedom. Think about it. The person disciplined with money is free from debt. The person disciplined with health is free from disease. The person disciplined with time is free from chaos. Discipline creates freedom because it builds the structure that allows you to live fully. Now let's bring in a bit of humor, because the truth can sting. Isn't it funny how people say they don't have time for discipline, but somehow they have hours for Netflix? They don't have time to build a side hustle, but they have endless time for TikTok. They don't have money to invest in books or courses, but they never miss the latest gadget. The truth is not that they don't have time, it's that they lack discipline. Jim Rohn once said, "If you don't design your own life plan, chances are you'll fall into someone else's." And guess what they have planned for you? Not much. That's the power of discipline. It's designing your life intentionally instead of being a pawn in someone else's game. Here's another story. I knew a man who dreamed of writing a book. He told me about it for years, always saying, "One day I'll start." But he never disciplined himself to sit down and write. Years passed. Then decades. He grew old, and the book never got written. Why? Because someday never comes. Without discipline, someday is just another word for never. On the other hand, there was a woman I knew who decided to discipline herself to write just 1 page a day. That's it, 1 page. Some days she hated it. Some days she felt inspired, but she did it every day. Within a year, she had a complete manuscript. Within 2, it was published. Today, her book impacts thousands of lives. Not because of one burst of inspiration, but because of daily discipline. That's what big thinking requires. You cannot think big and act inconsistently. You cannot think big and live sloppy. You cannot think big and neglect the small. The paradox is this: big visions are built on small disciplines. Thinking big is not about grand gestures, it's about microscopic consistency. So let me challenge you. Write this down. What disciplines am I willing to commit to daily, even when I don't feel like it? What are the non-negotiables in my life? Because your success is not in what you occasionally do, it's in what you consistently do. And if you're listening to this thinking, but discipline is hard, let me tell you something harder: regret. Regret is looking back 5 years from now and realizing you wasted time, wasted potential, wasted your shot. Regret is seeing someone else live the dream you had but didn't discipline yourself to pursue. Regret is heavy, discipline is light. Jim used to say, discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. Choose wisely. So here's your action step. Tonight, pick one area of your life where you know you've been neglecting discipline. Maybe it's health. Maybe it's finances. Maybe it's your relationships. Write down one daily discipline you will commit to starting tomorrow. And then keep that promise to yourself, because the most powerful form of self-respect is self-discipline. If you're feeling this, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me the one discipline you're committing to today. Because in the next section, we're going to go even deeper. We're going to talk about purpose, the why behind everything. Because without a big why, your discipline eventually dies. And when you connect your imagination, your associations, and your discipline to a massive purpose, that's when you become unstoppable. There is one final element that ties everything together. You can have imagination, you can build the right associations, you can even master discipline, but without a driving purpose, without a massive why, it eventually collapses. Because let's be honest, discipline gets tiring. Motivation fades. Friends leave. Circumstances change. But when your vision is fueled by a purpose bigger than yourself, nothing can stop you. Jim Rohn said, if the why is big enough, the how becomes easy. That line is more than motivational fluff, it's a law of human nature. Think about it. A parent who says they're too tired to work late suddenly finds the energy when their child needs food on the table. Someone who claims they're not disciplined suddenly becomes strict when their health is on the line. When the why is urgent, humans transform. So here's the question I want you to riff. Why do you want to think big? Is it just to have a nicer car, a bigger house, a little more money in the bank? If that's it, I promise you it won't sustain you. Because the moment things get tough, you'll quit. That if your why is deep, if it's about giving your family the freedom they never had, if it's about breaking the cycle of poverty, if it's about proving to yourself that you were meant for more, then you'll keep going long after the excitement fades. Let me share a story. I once met a man who grew up with nothing. His parents struggled to pay rent, and he often went to bed hungry. As an adult, he had opportunities to play it safe, to settle, to live small, but he refused. His why wasn't about him, it was about his children. He said, I will never let them go through what I went through. That purpose lit a fire in him that no obstacle could extinguish. Today, his children live in freedom, not because life got easier, but because his why was bigger than his fear. That's the secret of thinking big. It's not just about you. It's about who benefits when you step into your true potential, who suffers if you don't, who misses out if you stay small. Because your dreams aren't just about your comfort, they're about your contribution. So here's what I want you to do tonight. Grab a journal and write down your why. Don't censor it. Don't try to sound impressive. Be raw. Be honest. Ask yourself, what's the fire that will keep me moving when everything gets hard? And once you write it down, read it every single morning. Let it become the fuel for your imagination, the filter for your associations, the anchor for your discipline. Because when you combine these 4 elements, imagination, association, discipline, and purpose, you become unstoppable. You stop being a victim of your circumstances and start becoming the architect of your future. That's what Jim Rohn devoted his life to teaching. That you don't have to live small. You don't have to settle. You can choose to think big, live big, and leave a legacy bigger than yourself. So here's my final challenge to you. Don't just watch this video and move on. Take action. Tonight, rehearse your vision. Audit your associations. Commit to one discipline. Write down your why, and then start living like the big thinker you were meant to be. If this message spoke to you, if you feel that fire in your chest right now, hit the like button. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss the next video, and share this with someone you know who's been playing small because maybe, just maybe, this is the spark they need. Remember Jim Rohn's words, don't set your goals too low. If you don't need much, you won't become much. Life is short. Don't live it small. Now it's your turn. Think big. Act bold. Live free.